Welcome back. Now, the Sussexes have broken their silence to deny reports they are set to sue the makers of the South Park satirical cartoon for this already famous episode. Watch.
We are here because privacy is a basic human right. How many more princes and his wives have to live in this nightmare?
Hey, can you two fucking keep it down?
Hey! You ever heard of a thing called privacy?
Yeah, nobody gives a shit. Will you two just shut up and go away?
It never gets old, but a spokesperson for the very annoyed Sussexes told People magazine that's their favourite, you know. It's all frankly nonsense, totally baseless, boring reports. Well, Harry's biographer, Angela Levin, joins me now. You know what, Angela? The fact that they felt strongly enough to release a statement shows that the South Park episode has got under their skin, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, they recognised themselves from it. They could have, although it was quite obvious, they didn't have to recognise themselves. They could have just said that's nonsense and not gone further. But Prince Harry rang up the producer and actually said to him, no, you know, you've got this wrong, and also you've got that wrong. And the producer said to him, excuse me, sir. He said, but it's just a cartoon. And that made
it's not even about them, is it?
Well,
it's about a sort of prince and princess
yes,
living in Canada.
Right.
It could be anyone, Angela.
It could be anyone. And it just shows how awful it is if you're hypocritical, and how awful it is if you just think of yourself, and how awful it is when you haven't got anything inside. And that was the bit when the prince wanted to say, you know, I don't want this life anymore. I want to go back and do what we said we would do. That's a very important part. But actually, I could see that we don't need to prove ourselves anymore. It's what's inside that matters, not what other people think about us. And he opens this enormous mouth of the princess and says, hello, and there's an amazing echo. And you realise there's nothing there. And my goodness, that's a walloping insult, isn't it?
And this is the last thing they would have wanted, because, of course, they thought that they were going to be taken very seriously in Hollywood. You know, Meghan thought that the Democratic Party was going to be saying, come on, we want you to run for president one day. Instead, they have become a laughingstock. They are being ridiculed now by their people. That's what's so fascinating. You know, South Park, this is the ultimate in the Hollywood liberal elite set.
Yes. It smashed them to pieces, really. And actually, they were always... one of the reasons why they didn't like being in Great Britain was that it was tiny. And Meghan has enormous ambitions to do things globally, how she wants people to be compassionate to those you know, those you don't know, don't fly, do this, don't that, stand up for being a woman. And there she is crying in this cartoon, non-stop when she doesn't get her way. But it's just that you can't put on all that pretense unless you've got substance underneath. And they're actually, you know, as that proved, there's that particular princess, I won't name them, hasn't got any substance. And I think you can't see other people, what other people think of you. You have to look and see what other people, how they react to you, not just go on yourselves and think you're beyond anything. But I think Meghan won't make too much fuss about it because she doesn't care about those things. I don't believe that she's very miserable and crying. I think that's the PR putting it for her, so we feel sorry for her. I think it will make her more determined
throughout.
Yes.
And, of course, we know that she also briefed via her PR company, you know, that she was very unhappy with Spare, you know, and she's going to be even more unhappy now because it has backfired. But look, I wanted to show you, Angela, this moment from last night because we had Meghan's sister, of course, great friend of the show, Samantha Markle, who slammed the Sussexes' hypocrisy when it comes to privacy. So watch this.
As we see, they've largely shaped social perception by paying PR, which includes a whole host of journalists. But seemingly they only like what the journalists say when it's in their favor, and when it's not, they become litigious. We've seen the lawsuits. So, I mean, that's a horrible hypocrisy. And I think with me, what I'm going through, you know, I think they take a huge license to defame and disparage other people, but they don't want anyone even using a distant resemblance or likeness of them or make.
And that is the irony, isn't it? You know, look, they're probably not going to sue in America because the bar for defamation in America is so high, and this would be laughed out.
The First
of a
Amendment,
courtroom.
you can't actually do that, especially if you're somebody who's known in the public. You can't.
Totally. Plus, this is comedy, it's satire. You know, it would just be disastrous for them. But she is right, Samantha, isn't she?
Absolutely.
When it comes to here in the UK, they are so trigger-happy legally.
Well, they've been more unpleasant to certain people than you would ever imagine. You know, to do that to your family. And I think that's what's helped their popularity go right through the ground. But the fact that they can't take anything themselves, that nobody's allowed to criticise, particularly Meghan, it's a nonsense. I just hope, but I think I won't get my hope fulfilled, is that Spare and this cartoon will make them think about themselves again and maybe change some of their spots and actually be a bit more kind to people, or not necessarily. You can criticise, but you don't try and smash them to pieces, like mash them up and invade their privacy, because you don't want your privacy invaded, as we saw.
I know. Don't they want to show a bit of compassion to their own blood relatives as well, especially Meghan's father, Thomas, who we know is struggling so much after this stroke which nearly took his life, and especially Prince William, you know, who was grieving the loss of the late Queen and then had to deal with all of the mud that came from the book. I couldn't agree more. Of course. Angela Levin.
Thank you.
We will speak next week. Thank you, Angela.